Good evening and welcome once again to Fired Up. I'm your host for the show, Bob Irwin. We are coming to you live from the studios of the Guns and Glory Network, broadcasting here in Las Vegas, Nevada. This show is about guns, politics, and related self-defense issues. We're going to do a little more on politics than we normally do in a segment. You'll see why in a moment. Fired Up with Bob Irwin can be seen on YouTube every Thursday around 5 p.m. We put up a new show, and you can find it if you look for YouTube on the Guns and Glory Network. We'll probably get you there. We're working on that at this moment. By the time this show's out, it'll be up there, hopefully. The audio feed is rebroadcast Saturdays at noon on the Nevada Talk Network, which is 7 or 8 stations simultaneously around the state of Nevada, except Clark County at the moment. You can go to www.kely1230.com for the stations in your area. It's in Battle Mountain and Reno and Sparks and Amargosa Valley and so on. But that's Saturday at noon. The YouTube show stays up forever, so you can always go on your computer and look at the old YouTube shows and discover what I said 3 years ago that turned out to be completely wrong. It's still there. Questions or comments about the show, you can send an email to me at bob@firedupmail.com and my office recorder, which is 702-257-1060, 257-1060. It's an answering machine there, but I'll call everybody back if you leave me contact information. We'll answer all inquiries by email or text. If you have an email for one of our guests, you can send it to me and I will redirect it to them if you would like. Today's guest is, as I said, is a little bit out of our normal because we're coming into political season. And today's guest is the Nevada State Assemblyman Richard McArthur. Welcome to Fired Up, Richard.
Well, thank you for having me.
A little bit of your background, if we could.
Okay, sure. Well, I represent Assembly District 4, which is in the northwest part of Las Vegas. It's probably the farthest northwest Assembly District that we have that's still in part of the city. But as far as my background goes, I have a degree in economics from the University of California, Davis. After college, I joined the Air Force. I thought flying airplanes might be fun, so I was a pilot for 6 years. I'm showing my age a little, but I was in Vietnam in 1968. After I get out of the service, that was my first job, so the Air Force was good. That was a good life, but I wanted to see what else was out there, so after about 6 years in the Air Force, I got out and I joined the FBI. I was with the FBI for 25 years. About my last 16 years, I worked here out of the Las Vegas FBI office. And then once I retired from that, that's when I got involved in politics.
16 years with the FBI in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
So you're the guy that knows where all the bodies are actually buried.
Well, I've been retired for a while, but I know where some of them are buried.
Yeah. It was a different town back then.
It
you
really
must
was.
have met some bad guys.
We did, and yeah, I got here just before we started doing all that sort of thing. I got here at the first part of '81, the end of '80, so yeah, we cleaned up some of that.
And what kind of rank did you manage to make
get out
in the
of
Air Force?
The Air Force, I was a captain when I got out.
All right.
So
that's good.
yeah, no, it was like
An
I said,
officer and a gentleman.
Yes, and it was a good job. It was just the first one I had out of college, so I was going to look for something else.
So we're gonna talk about gun laws, obviously, that are on the plate, possibly in Nevada. We're, as I'm sure most listeners know, if you follow politics at all besides gun issues, that we're in a fight here for control of the Nevada legislature and the control of the governor's office and so on. Can you give me a guess from what you're seeing so far? Are the Republicans likely to hold the assembly this year in the election? It's a tough question now because when we're taping this, people haven't even filed for office yet. There's people say they're running for office, but they haven't actually filed. The only one that can file at the moment are judges. So, what do you think? I mean, it seems to be total turmoil.
Well, yeah, you talk about holding the assembly. We don't hold it now.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
Right now, Democrats control both the Assembly and the Senate. And so we only have 15 people in the Assembly right now, and 14 would be down 2/3. So if we lose one seat in the Assembly, they have the 2/3 vote, they can cover veto and everything else.
Wow.
As a practical matter, I don't think we're going to take it over. But I'd like to see us win 2 or 3 seats in the Assembly and maybe 1 or 2 in the Senate and keep working on that. The real problem is going to be in the governor's election.
Yeah.
Because if we get a Republican in there, we have a little bit of leverage because of veto power, and maybe we can make some agreements with the Democrats. But if we don't, if it's a Democrat that's up there as governor, they'll have both houses and the governor's seat, and Republicans can pretty much kiss Nevada politics goodbye.
I personally actually hope that doesn't happen. We've got, you just never know. Adam Laxalt probably is, being as I'm talking politics on this show, the most important election in Nevada this term, other than yours,
Yes,
is
of course.
Adam Laxalt.
Yeah.
If we lose the governor's race, the second most important, obviously, is the Attorney General, Wes Duncan, who's been a guest on this show lots of times, needs to be the Attorney General. If we lose the governor's race, we're in a lot of trouble. If we lose both of those, we're in.
Either one of them.
Might as
or
well
both.
move to Wyoming because it's over.
It'll be very tough for us here.
They're going to, do what they're going to do, and we get more taxes, and away we go.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if, if they do, Democrats pick up everything, and a few years they're talking about state income tax. That wouldn't surprise me at all.
Yeah, I'm aware. I've got a guest coming on the next show. We're going to talk about that.
Oh, good.
That is heavily involved in the political races, and ask him the same questions. But his answers so far that I've talked are essentially the same. That they hope to get enough that they can, if the governor vetoes it, they won't be able to override stuff. It'll at least give get some.
A little bit of leverage.
Hopefully, some of the pundits on the right that I've talked to believe that they can, that we're looking perhaps at another Republican sweep in Nevada, and I don't see it. But people who really study that stuff say it's entirely possible because the great majority of people don't answer surveys and nobody talks to them. If you watch the talking heads on television, they all talk to each other. Nobody's talking to voters.
That's right.
It's.
I heard one person say they thought it might be a Republican sweep. I don't know where they got that information. I have a little trouble believing that. We'd have to pick up an awful lot of seats.
There's, the person that is the national fundraiser for the Republican Party now is Steve Wynn. Surprise.
Yes.
So, who knows? He certainly knows the people that have the money, and Sheldon Adelson is generally a very conservative person. And money is what makes everything happen.
That helps.
And if somebody dumps $1 million into your campaign in your assembly district, you're going to win. I mean, that's it. Unfortunately, that's the way politics works.
Certainly make it a lot easier
and,
to win.
Yeah. So, you will. I'll get your contact information where they can send their donations. Yeah.
Okay.
I got to point out that Richard has the honor of having the most conservative voting record. The Conservative Union came up with that. They looked at all the legislation over the last couple of years. And the most conservative voter in Nevada Assembly is sitting here with me.
Well, it actually happened in the 2011 session.
Okay, whenever.
And the American Conservative Union decided that they were going to check on some state legislatures. So they picked 5 states. And Nevada was one of those states they picked. and they found that, or decided, rated me the most conservative voter in the Assembly in that 2011 session. So
There you go.
it's sort of stuck with me since then.
Well, yeah, I'd let that stick with you. That's the Democrats are already trying to throw you out of office, so yeah,
Well,
can't hurt.
and last time I had a primary too, so.
Well, yeah, and you have a primary this year, do you know? Or do you think?
I
Nobody
doubt-
can file yet, so I'm asking.
I doubt it. I've talked to the people that ran against me before, even the Democrat that ran against me, and he's not going to run again. And the guy that ran against me in the primary, he'd like to get into politics, but he's not going to run against me either. So as of right now, my guess is I probably will not have a primary.
Well, that would be good news.
It would be good news.
So maybe after the primaries are over and nobody's filed, then you won't have to do any fundraising.
You're right.
You can print a little more brochures.
Can I? That's right.
Keep that one brochure you got and show it to people. Let's talk about gun laws for
Gun
a
laws,
moment, if
okay.
we can. I'm assuming you, and we haven't actually talked about this face to face, the Bill of Rights in the U.S. Constitution and the Nevada Constitution clearly give law-abiding Americans the right to keep and bear arms. Is that a true statement?
I'm good with that, yes.
Yeah. So
I think law-abiding citizens ought to be able to buy guns. I mean, there's no reason not to, really. But I guess we'll get into that.
well, yeah, that's the question, because the legislation proposed, one of the things the left is pushing really hard is that guns cause crime. If you're around a gun, the gun is going to cause you to go, oh, there's a gun, I'll go commit a crime. I mean, it sounds overly stupid, but that's kind of what I'm hearing out of them. Guns are an object. I hate to sound like a bumper sticker, but I've had guns in my house and in my office and whatever for as long as I could legally own a gun, since before I could legally own a gun when I was a kid. And none of them ever jumped up and committed a crime.
That's right. They've
never shot anybody. One of my guns shot at somebody once, but I was holding it at the time. The question that's coming to the legislature is going to be the universal background checks issue. That we need to do universal checks, and what they are professing is that every gun transfer, with some really narrow exceptions, and then part of the left doesn't even want to have those narrow exceptions, require a background check, which is what was tried in the bill that passed, and then Laxalt shut it down, where we tried to order the FBI to do background checks. That's another issue.
That's another, yes.
Certainly, will background checks, in your opinion, if they're done, and we have problems with this recent case where the Air Force missed one, and we had one of the other mass shootings, they had the same thing where an FBI clerk missed one that
I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, it was one of the other mass shootings. I meant to look it up before I did the show and I forgot, but she looked at a page on a guy and there was a second page, and she didn't flip the second page, which said he had a domestic violence conviction. And she just missed it. And they admitted that, she's trying to look at 2,000 of these a day. I mean, the FBI is doing literally 1 million background checks, and because so many guns are being sold because of so much crime, and they're just overworked. They didn't have enough people there to do everything. And the Air Force didn't miss the one they missed on purpose. There are going to be clerical errors in everything you do. There are going to be clerical errors. And I don't want to take the abnormality and make that the rule.
The reason, yeah.
So when we get back from break, we'll talk about universal background checks and what they will do and can and cannot do. We'll be right back. Don't go away. Hi, I just wanted to let listeners know about a great experience I recently had at Godden Ford. I just bought a new Ford Escape there, and they took terrific care of me. Sales manager Moses Martinez and salesman Joe Tim offered me a great deal for Fired Up fans. Call Godden Ford, they're at 702-731-2121, and ask for Joe Tim or Moses Martinez. Ask for the Fired Up discount. They will give you employee pricing. That is invoice plus $100 on any new or used vehicle on the lot. Remember, to receive the Fired Up discount, their employee pricing, you must ask for Joe Tim or Moses Martinez at Godden Ford. They're at 6625 Roy Horn Way here in Las Vegas. Tell them Bob from Fired Up sent you. Thanks. And we are back. We're going to talk now about some Nevada gun laws, and a little background I have to do first is bills that go into the legislature here start as what they call BDR, Bill Draft Resolutions, and they are submitted, but none of them have been submitted yet. There are simply blank pieces of paper that say BDR number so-and-so, and it isn't written yet because they haven't got, it's got a number, but it doesn't have any content, as I understand it. So the left guys are trying to put together a bill that requires universal background checks and presumably would require no magazines greater than 10 shots and other things like that we've heard about. It'll outlaw bump stocks, which is currently going through Congress and so forth and so on. It's pretty much going to be a copy, I believe, of the federal bill, but we don't know that yet. So I can't really, in fairness, ask Richard to comment on a bill that doesn't exist yet.
Oh, you could.
I could, but the answer will be I don't know either, like I just said. Assuming it goes along with the federal laws, it requires universal background checks, meaning everybody, private party to private party, they go somewhere to a gun dealer or somebody and get a background check done, meaning they fill out a 4473 form, all the questions, I'm not this, I'm not that, I'm not wanted, I'm not a drug addict, and so on. And then the dealer, the original bill that Laxalt stepped on would require the dealer then to go direct to the NICS system in Washington run by the FBI and get the background check. Well, it can't be done. What people don't understand about the NICS system is it's an electronic thing where you have to have a computer that's hooked to the FBI system and they have all sorts of security stuff on it so nobody can hack it and find out who's buying guns. So the dealer then simply types the guy's name and social security number, optional, date of birth and place of birth, and punches it in the computer without being touched by human hands, says, yes, he can have a gun, or it says, no, he can't, or it says he's on delay, which means they have to look at something they don't have all the information on. If somebody's name is John Smith, they always come up on delay because John Smith, at any date of birth, there's at least 10 of them that are felons, right? So it's an imperfect system because you don't talk to a human, but we don't have the system in Nevada because we're required by law to call the state criminal history repository and physically, over the phone, give them the information. If you bought a gun recently, you've seen that happen. The dealer calls somebody and talks to them and gives them your information. And then they, in turn, relay it by computer to the FBI as a secondary check. So we can't physically do that background check, and yet when the bill was passed to require them, and Sandoval refused it, and they tried to do an override and require it. Laxalt, the Attorney General, stepped in and said, we can't order the FBI to do something that they don't want to do. And the FBI simply said, we're not going to put the manpower in to do this. Right. So if there is a universal background check, it's going to have to be done on the state level. The federals simply aren't going to do it. I think the voters of Nevada should be able to order the FBI to do whatever they want the FBI to do.
Oh, sure.
And Well, that would only be fair, and then the other 49 states and Puerto Rico could do the same thing, and you could have a whole division of these guys are doing what the state of Nevada wants, these guys are doing what Missouri wants. I mean, it's a ludicrous point.
It certainly is.
But if the BDR shows up, and do you believe that background checks stop crime? Is what I'm basically asking.
No, they don't. And we've seen that with the tragedy we had here in Las Vegas. That guy passed the background checks, and he bought his guns legally. And this idea of that the left, I guess, pushes is that crime and that sort of thing happens because of guns. It's not the gun's fault. It's the people behind the gun. It's the people that bought the gun. It's the people that are going out and committing crimes, and they may use a gun, and they're the ones pulling the trigger. So the argument that it's guns causing crime just is kind of silly. And as far as the background checks, I'm for background checks, but some of these laws just go too far. I mean, everyone ought to have the legal option in this country, if you're a law-abiding citizen, to buy a gun.
Yeah, and if you're not a criminal or whatever, and if I don't personally as a dealer have a problem. When I was a gun dealer for 30 years, I didn't really share the view of some of the more radical conservatives that there should be no background checks. I liked background checks because what it did prior to that, and I was the only guy in town old enough to remember, then we'd sell a gun to somebody and then it would be stolen, and the guy who stole it would sell it to somebody else, and then the gun was used in a crime, a serious crime, murder or something, and we would catch the lawsuit saying we should have known that selling a gun to Joe, it was going to be stolen, and Fred then who stole it would sell it to Jim, who would commit a crime with it. The theory was that because we entered the gun into commerce, we were responsible for it forever.
Right.
And obviously, that can't happen because what the left would want, there'll be no gun shops, because you couldn't possibly get insurance for that. And so the FBI system, the current system we're using with the state is fine. And if the state says in black and white, yeah, you can sell the guy the gun, we have no record of him being mentally deficient or whatever, I like that.
Yeah.
And I don't think most people would disagree with that, that we don't want crazy people getting guns, and we don't want people with serious criminal histories getting guns, felons and so forth and so on. And hopefully, something halfway like that will go through, where the state could require that we go to the criminal history repository and ask them, is it okay to sell a gun to this guy, and this is his date of birth and whatever, and the state will say yes or no. And if the state's wrong, fine, because the state's immune from suit. So they can't be, they can be sued, but they have had to, doing their job to the best of their ability. You can't sue somebody for making a mistake if they're operating to the best of their ability. So it would, I think, is a decent middle ground, and I'm going to catch a lot of flack over that from some viewers.
I don't think so. That's sort of the way I feel.
I have in the past.
Oh, have you?
Yeah.
Oh, so. Well, no, because I think that's a good middle ground, because I'm for those basic background checks. But background checks are not going to, stop crime. And the thing is, if someone wants to commit a crime, they're going to commit a crime. If the bad guys, the problem I have with just getting rid of all guns, you're getting rid of all guns from
legal guys.
Legal guys, law.
Yes.
And the bad guys are going to get guns anyway.
Of course.
So a nice background check is fine, but you aren't going to stop all this crime just because you get rid of guns.
No, if it's easy to do and it's free, if the state wants to require, of course nothing's free. We still got to pay the people at the state to do it.
We'd have to pay for it. Maybe if you paid the FBI, they might do it too. You think?
I don't think they want to open that can of worms. You don't think they want to? Okay.
No. You paid them enough. That wouldn't work?
We're paying the IRS, and they're not nice. It's a problem that I believe that a simple, free, quick background check is reasonable.
Right.
Requiring them where you loan your gun to your brother to go hunting with it in the same state and that sort of thing should be exempted. Most family members should be exempted, et cetera, et cetera. Where you know, there already is an exemption in the background checks for ranges. If we give somebody a gun to shoot on our range, or if it's an outdoor range on their property, that's exempt because they're not leaving the premise with the gun. There is
Right.
no transfer. In reality, they don't have control.
Yeah.
We still have control. And if you don't believe we still have control at the gun store, try and run out the door with one of the machine guns and see what happens. We do have control. And it should be exempt the same way with households and things like that. But I just have to think there should be some cursory free check that will catch the big fish. That's
Yeah.
all. And we're not going to catch everybody.
And you
They
aren't
have
gonna-
fake IDs.
yeah,
They
and you
have
aren't gonna
straw
s-
sales.
That's
They
right.
have-
You aren't going to stop all crime just with these background checks. So there's no reason to push.
Because they do a
push it.
straw sale.
Yeah.
And I've actually seen that, where somebody will come in and go and take a picture of one of the guns in a display case, then they're on their cell phone, and they send, I can see them sending the picture. Yeah, I want that
Yeah,
one.
that was a good
You
one.
want that one? What is it? It's, I don't know what it is, I just want it, you know. You
Wait
know,
a minute, I'll go back
bang,
on and find out.
No sale.
Yes.
You know. And we shut those sales off, and responsible gun dealers do that.
Yeah.
We're not the ones that are in the middle of this. Anyway, it's an interesting issue. As we get toward the election time and we see if you have an opponent or not, I would be delighted to have you back on. And if we get a BDR in this, which we will eventually, and we
Yeah,
can talk about
yeah.
it, you'd be a great guy to have talk
I'd,
about.
I'd be glad to
I,
come back on. I
you know.
see why they call this Fired Up with Bob, because normally I don't talk a lot, but you got me talking about these issues.
It's hard to talk on camera sometimes.
Oh, is that-
I've had guests on who just, I have a lady friend of mine that it just a radical pro-gun lady screaming and yelling. I brought her on the show and she sat there. She's afraid to talk on camera. If the camera's running, even a
didn't-
microphone for radio, she wouldn't do it. I just can't do it. But in person, look out, you know.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're going to be back next week with another guest and more on these issues and a little bit more on shooting. We'll have more political guys as time goes on because of the election coming up, and see if we can influence some of the voters to put conservatives back in office. Thanks for listening. We'll be back next week. Hi. Now you can get a copy of my recently updated book, The Reality of Armed Self-Defense. This is based on my 40 years experience in evaluating and defending lethal force cases. Learn the rules of using deadly force before you have to guess in the middle of a hostile situation. For Fired Up Special, you can get this book for only $10. If you live outside the first 48, please add appropriate postage. Mail orders can be sent to Bob Irwin, P.O. Box 97413, Las Vegas, Nevada 89193. Thanks for ordering one.